Good morning, everyone. This is a webinar for our white paper, which we submitted in Singapore. It's on the APAC water strategy. We are here to promote a deep dive into the white paper and promote the paper again. We've got the key presenters here, and Arun and Leela to kickstart this webinar. My name is Gayatri, and I'm the SWAN APAC manager. So please reach out to me for any APAC-related questions. Over to you, Arun and Leela.
Hello, thank you, Gayatri. I would like to kickstart this webinar to share about our the white paper that we published recently. So I am Leela Krishna. I'm one of the co-chair for the research group under Asia Pac Alliance, along with Arun. So to give you a background about like how this whole white paper came about. So in early 2023, we had a Asia Pac Alliance workshop in Melbourne, which was overwhelmingly attended by many of our members and utilities all over Asia Pac. And we discussed about more than 16 topics as roundtables during the workshop. And we had a very good participation and takeaways from the workshop. So then we saw that what can we do, follow up from this workshop, which can benefit the utilities and members, where they can have a strong takeaways which they can utilize in their day-to-day operations or and management. So that's when we had a mini session as a follow-up in October, where we also invited our members, and we wanted to prioritize at least 4 topics among these 16 topics where we can bring our members and also to participate and then create a white paper. So we thought like it'd be better if the white paper or the study comes from the members who actually have done work on the field, which will be beneficial to other members who want to start on this smart water or digitalization journey. So that's where we shortlisted these 3 topics, which I think Arun will elaborate more on. So one was, as usual, any time when you wanted to kickstart on a smart water or digital transformation journey, the first thing comes into mind is how to start, how to do this. Should I do it in-house or should I get somebody's help? So that is one topic we thought like, which will benefit members, so that it'll help them to start their digital journey. The second one is once you decided like how to go about it, then the complexity comes in where you have discrete data sources. How do you bring everything together so that you can get benefits through an integrated manner? And then finally, so once you have this data, everything figured out, so then what benefits you can get in actual operations, whether it's water and energy access or other things. So I will give this to Arun, my co-chair, who will elaborate more on each of the topics. On a summary basis. Then he will give it to the other speakers who will give or talk about their papers more in detail. Thank you, Arun. Over to you.
Okay, thanks, Leela, and thanks everyone for attending this webinar. I think it's been a very nice journey that we had since 2023, as Leela mentioned, and the outcome of this particular white paper has been extremely fulfilling. But without further ado, let me just dive into the topics themselves to give a brief overview and summary of what work has been done on each of these topics. The first topic is basically, Gayatri, can you please go back to the previous slide? Yeah, so the first topic is basically choosing the right approach to smart water project development, which includes a certain decision framework for choosing between off-the-shelf and in-house solutions for smart water projects. It covers certain considerations in terms of cost, availability, customization needs, and also a certain informed decision-making process that is also involved in the paper, right? The second paper talks about the challenges in managing data from diverse OT, IoT, and SCADA networks, addresses some of the complexities of data management, the various types of data that we have, the diverse sets of data that we deal with on a daily basis. What are the challenges in trying to harmonize these, and how we can create a harmonized data environment to facilitate data management. And last but not the least, we have the smart water energy nexus, which addresses some of the interdependencies between the water and the energy fields, the regional considerations, the strategies, and presents a holistic approach to integration of both water and energy together in the utilities. Yeah, so let me go on to introduce the speakers. Firstly, let me thank all the three speakers that are here today to take you through the highlights of the paper, the underlying challenges, methodologies that they used, and their findings. We have three brilliant individuals from the water industry. First up is Clarissa Phillips, Technical Director of Digital Delivery ANZ, Jacobs. Clarissa provides technical support, guidance, and direction to project delivery teams to support Jacobs' water clients' future digital vision. She's passionate about digital engineering and is excited to be part of this fast-moving industry. Clarissa is also the chair of SWAN APAC Digital Twins Group and enjoys bringing together digital engineering specialists to discuss new technologies and industry trends to innovate the water industry. Today, Clarissa will walk you through the first paper and present the decision framework and considerations involved in choosing the right approach for your smart water projects. Moving on, secondly, we have David Mason, Customer Director at IOTA, which is a subsidiary of Southeast Water. IOTA leverages innovation that is developed and proven at Southeast Water that addresses gaps in the market for solutions to problems faced by water authorities across Australia and overseas. He has more than 30 years of experience in commercialization, business development, marketing, and product development for the ICT, utility, and manufacturing industries. He's passionate about working with customers across the global water industry to drive digital transformation that leverages IoT and data analytics. He holds a Bachelor of Engineering Electronics degree and a graduate diploma in business as well. David's presentation will focus on the challenges in managing data from diverse OT, IoT, and SCADA networks, and will take you through all that you need to know regarding current data management practices, their downside challenges, and how to create a uniform and harmonized data environment. Last but not the least, we have Andy, who is the practice lead for development and automation for Stantec in the water sector. Andy is currently working on projects with water utilities across the country to help them more efficiently achieve their business goals through the redesign of their systems, practices, and tools for managing data and modeling. He's here with us to talk on one of the hottest topics concerning all water utilities, the water energy nexus. He will be our last speaker for this webinar and will touch upon interdependencies, considerations, and potential approaches for integration of energy with water. So many thanks to the three of you for delivering this webinar. Without further ado, let me hand over the stage to Clarissa to commence the proceedings. Clarissa.
Thanks, Arun. Hi, everyone. We have our first slide, please, Gayatri. So I want to just have a big shout out to Mark Nicol, my co-chair. Thank you very much for assisting us and leading us on this journey. And I'd also like to thank Juan Londano from Southeast Water, Kevin Cheong from Southeast Water, Bart Fine from Greater Western Water, John Brailsford from Optimatics, Nish Dogra from Detection Services, and Kashanda Singh from Schneider Electronics. We couldn't have done this without you. Thanks for all your support and help. And thanks to SWAN for supporting us in writing this paper, choosing the right approach to smart water project development. And welcome to our members that are on the call today. Have the next slide, please. So why did we do this and write this paper? So for the utility, we wanted to make a call on how to implement that digital strategy because sometimes you really don't know where to start. There's too much choice out there. There's information overload or information fatigue and different people selling different software solutions that just might not fit in with your utility. And for the supplier, we thought we could help by providing you with information on helping the utility develop their solutions that meet their specific needs. The next slide, please. And then we thought we'd come up with some methodology after that. So once you found out the why, then you need to determine the how. On that next stage, so you've got to define the requirements. What needs do you have, and the objectives of the, what do you need this software for, and what does it need to do, and your must-haves of what are your top priorities, and can it be scalable? Like, do you just need a small solution that needs to be scaled up, over time? And can it integrate with your different software packages? Can it integrate with SAP or maximize your asset management software? What do you really need for that future? And then the next stage will be evaluate versus your buy options. So do you need off-the-shelf or in-house or hybrid solutions for your software? We really want to flesh that out and understand that. And the implementation, what do you need to make the right decisions? Like, how is this software going to be used for continual improvement and evaluation of your data, or what you want to use it for? So what is that bespoke solution that you need for your utility? So next up, we will look at the framework and understanding the why. What does your business need or your utility need to make it, that pre-built solution or align with business objectives? And how can we help the utility to make those informed decisions? So the headings we came up with was adaptability and resources. So is the organisation ready to adapt? And what do we need to do to enable that? And the market differentiation and strategic leverage. So does the capability differentiate us in the market? What do you need to do for that solution? Regulatory and customer demands. So does this capability require technical considerations such as data security, cyber security issues, extension on connectivity, uptime, durability, customer demands? What are they? And that long-term vulnerability was our last one. How long do you need this capability? How will it evolve in the future? Do you need a partner to provide that service? Or how likely are you that product owner to align with the future capability? Next slide, please.
I think we are not able to hear you very well, Clarissa. I think David.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Very muffled, and it's okay now. So is that something, David, you raised your hands for?
Yes, correct. It was. I think others were having difficulty.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Can you hear me better now? Maybe
Now
I need
it's
to sit
getting
closer
better.
to my
So,
laptop.
I'll move to the
Sorry,
next
everybody.
slide. Yes. So let's
Yeah,
move to the
sorry.
next slide, and let's
Yeah, okay. So this is the case study, and a big shout out and thank you to Kevin Cheong from Southeast Water, who did this study. And their journey really started 7 years ago, where they really wanted to find a software package or a software solution to manage their IoT data. And a little bit about Southeast Water is in Victoria, and they have just under 2 million customers, and they provide wastewater and drinking water solutions. So the first thing we looked at was the motivation and that decision of, like, why did they need this? So they initially used the SCADA software to manage this information, and that was expensive, and what did they need next to make those decisions? So they looked at the cost and time to build this and so on, and different platforms, and looked at whether they, what did they need to get the right solution for that utility at that time. So the next thing they looked at was the integration and the customization. What did they need? So did they, what did they need to integrate into? What software packages did they have? What tools did they already have, like Power BI? And they already had a great team that knew how to use the SCADA system. So, is it reasonable to get a software solution to do these things that they're already managing in the SCADA system. And then they looked at their real-time data processing and understanding. So, that's a really crucial element for them. So how would they use that in the future, and what was the vision? And how would they, the next stage was the scale and data management. So how would they scale this up? They're managing already 100,000 meters in the field, and they needed more. So how would they use this software to adopt that and grow? And the other factors in the decision making were the digital meters integration with the telecommunication systems that were around at that time. That integration, as I was talking about before, with Maximo, their asset data management system, and their finance system. That was really critical. And their enterprise secure facilitated communications with the finance system. And upscaling, like I've said before, it's really important to know how much do you need to upscale this in the future. Can I get the next one, please? So can you hear me a lot better now?
Yeah.
That's all right. Okay, I must have been having issues with the internet. So the next step was the justification and unexpected benefits that they had. So the team needed to justify their investment in the software naturally. And then what were the outcomes of their expectations? So cost savings for customers by identifying leaks, and those behavioural changes that they will see with their customers, and that creation of a digital workforce by reemploying the digital meter readers. So the data evolution and digital metering shift is the next step. And over the years, that data collected really evolved, and the shift towards digital metering, it became deeper, that understanding of what they had available and what they could predict for the future. And so then the next step was their change management and ongoing scaling of the software. So the consultant that they got in facilitated change management, ensuring everyone was on board. The software initially built in-house is now managed by IOTA. And their team included data scientists who could analyse that data. So it was really, that was the change management thing. They really needed to employ people that could read that data, such as data scientists. And so how did they manage their risks and mitigation? The project involved significant costs with really uncertain business. So you can imagine 7 years ago, this is quite new and upcoming, and they were, I suppose, that was the issue. How did they overcome that? And new software builds can, of course, carry potential issues. And finding the right talent, that was really challenging for the utility. And transitioning to the cloud was, this hadn't been done before, so they were worried and saw this as a huge risk. And ensuring scalability with their meter rollouts remains an ongoing concern. Can I get the next one, please? Yep. So our key findings for this, the choice between off-the-shelf and in-house solutions depends on factors such as project requirements, budget constraints, and time constraints, and the organisation's long-term strategy for smart water management. And the outcome is more likely you would need a hybrid approach, and success relies on working collaboratively with the software provider, consultant, and the utility to agree on the best solution for you. And so the value to the sector that we found was this paper and is to be used as a guideline to start your journey there. So the benefit to the utility is it can be used as a guide to develop as a business case. We found that really one of the huge benefits. And the supplier benefit helps you improve understanding of what the client needs, when developing this software solution. And a general benefit to SWAN and other to everyone in the region, we thought shows alignment across the APAC region in water. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, so there's one question from Junaid. When did SEW case study platform develop, in which year?
Well, it was 7 years ago. That's
okay. Yeah. And then did you consider the option of externally developed bespoke software?
Yes, we did. We looked at, is that for the white paper? They did, or for the use case? Yes, they did. And they just found it wasn't they couldn't find a solution that fit them, so they wanted to develop that solution in-house. That they just saw that as working best for them at the time.
Okay. There's one other question from Colin. What would make this need for a water authority different to every other water authority around the world?
Different to every other. What would make this need for a water authority different? Is this for the...
So Colin, could you expand your question?
Yeah, I don't think this would be, yeah, they're not different. They just found that solution. Yeah, really, that was building the solution in-house was what they needed at the time, I suppose. It didn't, yeah, I think they just could not see beyond integrating with all the different software packages they already had. They just could not find a solution that suited them at the time. And I think, yeah, they weren't.
Can you hear me? David here. Can you hear me? Clarissa?
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously as part of our role at IOTA, as a subsidiary of South East Water, we've now taken over not just licensing the platform back to South East Water, but really partnering with others in the industry here in Australia, whether it's Toowoomba Regional Council or Barwon Water. So the platform's been built in a way that has got specific water rules which are applicable to all water utilities, and it's built in a way that allows easy integration to upstream systems, whether that's a data lake or other billing, onboarding. So yeah, it's actively now being licensed and sold by IOTA, and you know, we look to then attract global partners to take that forward to the next level.
Yeah, and there is another question from Ash. Are you able to see the questions as well, Clarissa? Or
yeah, I've got them up now. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So was there a reason they decided to have the solution rather than keep it in-house? Were there cultural business reasons? Yeah, it was really just the integration. They just couldn't see a software solution, and I think they had someone at the time that could also build that capability. Do you know the background on this further? Yeah, I think they just could not see beyond using someone else's software, and they had the capability, and so off they went to build it, and did a really good job at that.
Okay, I think with the time issue, we would need to hand over this. I mean, I'll let you all post your further questions, and you can either answer back as a chat or get back to them later, and I'll hand over back to David.
Thank you.
Or yeah, I don't know, one of you.
I can kick off the three. Can everyone see me and hear me okay? I'm not on camera, I don't think.
Yes, we can.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, you can see me. Okay, great. Well, firstly, good afternoon all, and thanks, Swan, for this opportunity to present on behalf of our working team. It was a collaborative project focused on understanding how to manage and integrate the multitude of data sources across water utilities, with often similar data that's collected by the traditional SCADA OT networks, but now more recently IoT systems like Clarissa mentioned in the case study from South East Water. So smart meters, network pressure and flow sensors. So what I want to cover today is really about the challenges as we defined by the group, the methodology to identify and harness relevant data, and a framework to help others think about and think through the best way to harmonize those data sets, and ultimately how to better manage at different stages of integration across the input sources. We've got a couple of really good case studies on that. We'll move on to the next slide.
Yep.
So it took the group a bit of time to actually really clarify and distill down what the underlying challenges that we wanted to really define of different data sources from OT and IT, IoT monitoring. So in the end, our focus was on really about how to improve business efficiency by integrating and harmonizing different data sets into a single source of truth to facilitate the comprehensive data analytics and ultimately smarter decision making. And the basis for this challenge is integrating the historic SCADA OT systems with the emerging multitude of IoT devices and the systems that manage those devices. And you may ask why? Well, because there are significant advantages in having a single version of truth to improve incident response, optimize network operational capacity, along with the return on investment and avoiding adverse impacts of making an action in one part of your network, which may have an adverse impact on another part of your network. Next slide. So when you start to look at how to do this first step, it is really about starting with the customer or a data journey map, working through where the data comes from and what is it used for, and the value of it. So the starting point is the business problem being addressed, whether that's identifying more proactively customer-side leaks or network leaks with the new sensors that are in these meters. That's what really needs to be addressed up front. So looking at across all relevant information sources, as I said, as an example, a customer-side leak. It is then important to understand the level at which that data is relevant. For bulk meters in a network, that might give you a view of the overall system, water system. If you're monitoring a main flow meter, that might give you a specific view of a part of the network. And then if you're monitoring customer meter data, that might actually help pinpoint a source of leak. So this creates a data hierarchy and starts to articulate which part of the system or network each data set will focus on. And then the final layer is looking at to integrate and analyze the data based on the understanding of its relevance. Move to the next slide. Yeah, and I think as part of what we defined and provided as a sort of a resource from other WASA guideline documents, as an example, this sort of digital reference framework was really about assisting mapping the integration of the data through the whole stack and across the business. And we'd recommend, as part of one of our findings, is to use something like this, which starts to show where the data comes from and how it can be accessed and leveraged across the organization. This helps to establish the customer data journey map, identify what the key pieces of information, where they are drawn from, and how better to bring it together in a collective sort of decision-making tool. Move to the next slide. So in pulling this together, the steps we defined as a guide start with a system approach. Look at the overall business system and ensure that you have a good understanding of the business objectives. Then map the key touch points to optimize the data integration at the right levels. Part of this is to ensure that the key asset for remote monitoring are identified along with data monitoring requirements. Ensure that the business understands how the data is analyzed to develop insights and outcomes. Then use continuous improvement to streamline the processes, and over the longer term, look to use the data to automate processes. And then to enable this, you need assign a single source of truth across the business, which requires strong data governance, that the data procedure is robust and reliable. I think I'm actually going to keep that in my room. I'll just continue on. We'll move to the case studies. The first case study, Collarbone Water, back in 22, they implemented an integration platform that allowed for a standardized integration technique and a rapid deployment of solutions connecting internal and external data points and systems, thus reducing the time and effort and support costs. So this solution enabled Collarbone to ingest data from various sources and in different formats, and transform it into an appropriate format specific to the different platforms, enhancing data visibility and usability to improve business performance. And in particular, it brought about some real insights from into CRM, which unlocked extra new capabilities such as hourly usage reporting and triggered other business rules. As an example, leaks and meter faults. We'll move on to the next case study. We partly touched upon some of the background of Southeast Water's digital utility transformation in the IoT platform that they did build in-house. As Clarissa said, that program started back in 2016, and as early as that, when they started an early deployment of their new digital meters with multiple sensors, not just flow, but vibration and pressure and temperature. So currently they've deployed close to 100,000 new digital meters, with 60% of those with these new innovative vibration sensors, which is a real game changer in terms of how to find network leaks and reduce non-revenue water. To bring all this data together under one enterprise view, Southeast Water's approach was to ingest both the IoT data and traditional SCADA data into a cloud-based data and advanced analytics platform. And as you can see in this picture, the data is ingested at different speeds from both the SCADA and IoT layer and pushed to their new cloud-based data analytics solution, which they call their lakehouse. Some examples of that different type of data transfer is event-driven, micro batch and batch, but also some of the data, SCADA data, can be pushed based on certain events. So we'll move on to some of the key findings. So the two main inhibitors were really about inconsistent data naming standards and a lack of clear data transformation requirements, and really how to integrate, transform similar looking data from different parts of the business. This is a need to work together as a sector to really determine consistent asset naming conventions and data standards. The case studies in the paper, along with the methodologies outlined, are really designed to help water utilities to find approaches that can adapt, integrate, and assess data from different parts of the business. And I think just the final slide, just in terms of the value to the sector from using this approach: improved operational efficiency across the entire organisation, minimizing redundancy and duplication across OT and IoT devices, a higher return on investment from the implementation of these two different layers, and higher staff morale because they don't see the time wasted as they get much more value from using an integrated information and data set. So just in closing, I'd like to acknowledge the input from the contributors, as you can see here. Greg, Stelios, Josh, Marinus, and Ian, and in particular Greg and Josh, who provided final editing to this paper, and also Josh for the case study from Colaban. So thank you.
Okay, so I'm just bring the questions now. Are there any questions for David?
Hi, Arun here. David, a very interesting presentation. Actually, when we were editing the paper, right, this thought did not come in my mind, but as you were speaking today, is something very relatable to what PUB is also doing in terms of data management. But the other aspect that I wanted to also bring about is we also consider the adequacy aspect of data in terms of what is the coverage of the sensors, or what is the coverage of data that is required, and what is the frequency of data collection that is needed into the scheme of things as well. So do you think that that would add value to the framework that you're proposing through this paper? So maybe I'll kickstart the questions for this part. David?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, I remember that was a question specifically around the frequency of the different types of data coming in. Sorry.
Yeah, so I was saying that we in PUB also, we have this data management framework, but in the sense that we also bring in the aspects of how much data we are collecting in terms of data adequacy. That is, what is supposed to be the coverage of sensors, what is the frequency of sensors, and that enables us to further do cost optimizations and projections as well, which will minimize redundancy, duplication, as well as your needed capex and opex costs in future as well. So do you think this aspect also needs to be brought inside the framework that you're proposing? Would it add value to it?
I think it would. Like, we touched upon that briefly around the different ways of integrating data into a single source. Like in Southeast Water's case, as I said, they're pulling in data in batch and micro batch, depending on when the digital meters are reporting on a daily basis. Sometimes they don't report, so you have to fill in for those reads. SCADA networks, some of it's event driven. So again, it just depends on the different sources of the data. But yeah, I think that needs to be sort of discussed at that initial planning stage. I think in the case of Josh with Collarband, they did a similar thing. They had to bring all those different data sets together, coming in at different times during you know, the journey of that data, whether it's daily or event driven.
Understood. Thanks.
Okay. I guess we can move on to the next speaker now. Over to you, Andy.
Okay, thank you, Guthrie. And yeah, welcome everybody once again. So just go to the next slide. Thanks, Guthrie. Just to give you a bit of an overview of what came about in the Smart Water Energy Nexus white paper. The biggest challenge we had to start with was just the water energy nexus is such a broad topic. And so to try and produce a white paper that was succinct and yeah, did anything, was we had to try and start to think a bit about who we're going to write this for. So we determined what the audience was. Obviously, it was for SWAN, you know, it's for the SWAN audience, but in particular, the groups that tend to do a fair bit of the work in this space are the municipal water utilities. So we had a space there where we were trying to think about that and what they might need. And then sort of having gone around, had some discussions, we went through and sort of explored, well, this paper can only really be introductory. So for those of you that do a lot of work in this space, I don't think you'll find anything amazingly new. It's designed to be approachable. It's designed to try and be something that gives you some, you know, the introduction to it. There is a case study or two in there and just some examples of technologies, and not exhaustive examples, list of examples, but just some other technologies that are commonly in use. And again, we had to ring fence this to sort of look at scope 1 and 2 primarily, not with a hard and fast rule, but just again, the idea of trying to bring this into a manageable size to make sure that what was presented in the white paper covered the areas of greatest need. Something else that we were challenged with was, as this is the APAC group, there's actually quite a big spectrum of needs and challenges and other bits and pieces at like varied maturities of where the different water utilities are at across APAC. And so I guess that challenged us. We had to think about not just writing into, you know, many of us that were on the group were represented from Australia, but that's only one market. And so we had to think a bit more about where other groups might need to invest more and have a slightly different focus than us. And so you can see here on the bottom right, there's a figure that shows that energy consumption will continue to grow. And in many cases, that's entirely appropriate, where some other parts of the industry have maybe gone through a lot of that growth already as we move to treat a greater proportion of the water, move to having pressurized systems. And now we're probably trying to be on more of the flip side of trying to look at how we can be more efficient in our treatment and delivery and minimize use. But that's not the same uniformly across the globe or the APAC market. So we had to, so that was a bit of a challenge. And you'll see as you go through the paper, we have tried to sort of address that and bring that through. And lastly, there was the length of the paper. Again, we got a big shout out and thank you to the editors and the graphic designers who managed to bring our, what was a 20-page and worked with us to bring it down to a 9-pager. Would have loved it to be shorter, but nevertheless, that's where we've ended. And so thank you for that. It was a bit rushed at the end and there'll be some minor revisions. So just to give you a bit of an idea of how we went about writing the paper, there was a false start at first. And the reason I want to bring that up is there was a number of people that were involved along that early journey that all provided some good ideas and some opinions and things, and they were retained, even if those people didn't work their way through to be represented perhaps in the final collaborators and writers. They were retained. So thank you to them. And we ended up with 7 co-writers in the end. We met virtually several times, and just at the end of the day, we ended up breaking up. And so you've got different sections throughout the paper that were contributed by different people. So sometimes there's a subtly different flavour or feel to bits of the paper. But what you've got is the person who's best versed in those areas to go through and talk about the practices and tools and technologies in their areas of expertise. So next, thanks. Ultimately, what we started with, and you'll hear this a bit, I think you will have heard it from both the other 2 white papers, is start with understanding what you need first. What is your driver for change? And this is where it varied so greatly across APAC, but also it actually varies quite a lot when you sit down and talk with different utilities across even inside the same market with similar maturities. What the board, what their customers, what their current environmental pressures are, all varies. And that makes a big difference to what you're looking to try and achieve and how you might start this energy efficiency journey. If you're not clear on that, you could very easily start just copying and pasting what someone else has done. And that's not going to help you in the long run. And just a few questions that we were sort of interested to talk about was just how, going through the technological maturity of the utility. Do you have a pressurized system? How much of water are you treating? What's the willingness of the customers to pay? And then also, a lot of this is related to your use of energy. And so how mature is the network or the market that you're taking that energy from? Because again, your ability to work in this space isn't as a utility on your own. You're part of a much bigger ecosystem. And so you need to partner in that. Something that we found particularly helpful and we would like to call out is just the Australian government's energy management matrix, which speaks to there being, they've got 5 levels of maturity. That's on the bottom right there. You can look that up on the web. That's actually a helpful guideline just to think a little bit about where you're at and what technologies might be appropriate or, considerations. And so we were going through and looking at that. And then lastly, you perhaps want to look at where you're using your energy and start to help you prioritize. Next slide. So as part of it, we also are really grateful to Yarra Valley Water for contributing a case study. And this is a really good example of where water utilities in particular have a unique opportunity to blend the water and energy because they're actually getting energy through some of the byproducts and the wastewater products that come in. And there's opportunities that are a bit unique to water utilities. And this is one of those case studies that shows how they have been able to sort of use biogas and engines and the like to actually produce energy that they could then consume. In Australia, that's particularly good because the way that the market works, that to put energy back into the grid means that it can cost you while you get paid for it. As soon as it goes back into the grid, there's network charges. So anytime that you can service your own needs behind the meter and contribute to preventing your own energy costs, that has a particular benefit. And this is a really good example of one where it's able to actually reduce landfill. It has the greenhouse gas emissions, but ultimately it's got a knock-on effect for customers where it reduces the energy being consumed by Yarra Valley, where they can consume their own energy, and that can make a long-term savings for the customers. So it's just one of those examples of where it's good for the environment and good for the customer, and also one that is unique to what water utilities can do. I know there's a lot of examples of similar things to this around the country, and it's great to see them taking off. Thank you. So, some of the key things that it's worth just being really clear on. Just because something has taken place or was done in one part of the country, or even one part of APAC, doesn't mean that it's going to be necessarily the same technology that's needed elsewhere. So things that you need to consider will be the water source availability, the scale of your systems, how centralized or decentralized you are, all these sorts of things. I won't go through them all, but there's a lot of considerations. And then coupling that back to what are you trying to achieve? One of my favorite things to talk about is that a problem well defined is a problem half solved. And I think that goes for probably all three of the white papers here. But just one of those things where it's important to really know what you're trying to achieve, what your situation is. Now, there are many great technologies, and the white paper goes into a whole lot of different technologies at different points throughout the different energy, the water cycle, to look at what you could use. And I'm really grateful to our contributors to speak into each of those different areas. So I guess the key thing is to, once you've looked at what you're trying to achieve, identify where you can have the greatest impact on where you need to have impact, and then you can start looking at what technologies and tools and processes might help. Next slide. So, as I said before, this is just the introduction to considering energy efficiency. It's by no means meant to be a sort of encyclopedic. There's so many different places we could have written. There was, as I said, there's 20 pages that was brought down to 9. So we did write more and then had to choose what was most valuable. And hopefully it provides us a lot of questions that you can start to ask and considerations that feed into it. And also then it does talk about some of those technologies. There was another case study I didn't have time to cover now, but that's also worth looking at, and that's around leak detection. And lastly, but certainly not least, go to the next slide. Yep. I just want to thank all of our contributors to this. It was a really great group to work with. I really appreciated everyone's openness and willingness to pitch in and help write content and put it together. And you'll be seeing more of these people as we talk more. It won't always be me. Depending on the topic, you'll see the other people bobbing up and speaking. So thank you very much to all the team for all of your efforts. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy. Let's look at more questions. So there's a question from David for you. Does the paper include a consideration of business case financial analysis supporting the transition to smart water? Or is this assumed to have been completed prior to the application of this framework?
So I think, sorry, when David says smart water, I guess this paper was looking primarily at energy efficiencies and the use of energy efficiencies. And that's why I guess I spent so much time speaking to, you need to look at what your own business drivers are. Absolutely, a business case would need to be carried out. What are you trying to achieve? If when you're saying smart water, you're talking about trying to introduce additional technologies, I'd still suggest that this won't go into details about exactly what the business case should include, how to do that. That's a whole extensive exercise in its own. And hopefully it provides some considerations that go into it. This probably does assume that you have done some of that. There's a little bit of knowledge around that you can find in that Australian Government Energy Maturity Matrix that speaks a bit to some of those ideas of what you might look for there. And so hopefully this is a bit of a starting point. So I guess I didn't fully answer your question there. I think it's to say you do need to carry that out. This partially covers some considerations, but doesn't give you a formal framework to carry that business case out.
Sure. David says, perfect, thank you. And any other questions now, it's open to everyone to ask any further questions. I mean, there are open questions now I can see from others, but I don't know whether you want to now take it and answer it or answer it at a later point.
Do we have, I think we have 10 more minutes.
10 more minutes, yes.
Yeah, so maybe we spend another 5 minutes and then hand it back to you for SWAN updates. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, this was posted in the beginning, so must be for Clarissa. What was the communication protocol you used or they used? That's from Nurul Hassan. Or maybe David is typing answers for that. There are around seven open-ended questions. So one of them is just a comment. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a comment. Yeah, that's a good comment. Thank you for that, Janae.
Then So there's one other question from Colin Long. Our client also find a barrier to implement being different vendor. Are you able to read that, Andy?
Yeah, I think it says the question's for David, but I'll read it out just so we've got the full question.
Dave.
Our
Question
clients
for
also
David,
find a
please.
barrier to implementation being different vendors using a variety of platforms for device controls, and as a result, various industrial vendors and protocols. To enable the single source of truth from a data lake, you must be able to work with a variety of these. Did you overcome this by limiting the platforms of vendors or enable flexibility for vendors to provide solutions, i.e. limit your possible equipment solutions, by creating barriers based on data needs? So hopefully that gave David a little thinking time too.
Sorry, I was on
David
mute. I was on mute and I'll go back on camera. Great question. Yeah, it's the challenge around how to bring those data sets together when some of it's unstructured and then ultimately you want it structured in a way that you can enable different business users and personas to access that data. And it is a challenge. There's no specific standard sometimes in terms of how you structure the data. I know in the case of Southeast Water, they do have a data dictionary in terms of how they structure the data into their data lake that allows then some of the newer ways of, again, structuring that data, storing it either in blob storage or in structured form, can enable different processes and personas to be accessing that data. But I think that is one of the challenges we called out in terms of data taxonomy, if you call it that, around how to get consistent naming conventions or structuring of data. That was in particular why we suggested a framework around how the industry should come together and align on naming conventions on particular data objects. Not sure if that answers the question, but that was certainly something that our team did look at, and hopefully we've covered that in some of the frameworks and approaches that we outlined.
Okay.
Probably one other minor thing I might add to that is that while often we talk about these as a single project, they are also considered part of a wider roadmap. So if there is a proposed consolidation of platforms or those sort of things, that might be a longer term consideration as well, Colin, not just a one-off around this specific project, because you've got obviously lots of systems and even legacy systems that need to gradually be retired or consolidated or aligned. And so I'd make sure that people are thinking about this not just as a project, but also as a roadmap of other software systems in future as well.
And Narul is asking, what is the benefit of NB, IoT, or LoRaWAN? That's also for David, I guess.
Yeah, I think when it comes to comms options, there's pros and cons against, cellular versus other LPWAN technologies like LoRaWAN or WISE as another comms option. It really comes down to a lot of what Southeast Water wanted in their case, and I can talk to that case specifically, is that they wanted an open ecosystem. So again, standards-based, industry standards-based, firstly leveraging ubiquitous cellular MBIT capability, which was perfectly suited to the water meter use case and monitoring, IoT monitoring use case, which are battery-powered devices, low bandwidth or low data throughput on a daily basis, and ultimately that comes at a lower cost to serve based on a sort of a scale rollout. So that was one consideration, and then lightweight end-to-end. It was an optimized protocol where again Southeast Water led some of the innovation around putting in specific water objects to sort of build out the water use cases that they were focused on to leverage that sort of really efficient way of communicating, connecting devices out in the field to an IoT platform.
Cool.
All right. I think we're almost out of time. Yeah, so I just want to close this session by thanking everybody, specifically the attendees who have come in and spent time asking questions, and hopefully we'll find the paper useful for you guys. And secondly, thank all the speakers, the leads for the various groups, and the members of the groups as well for dedicating their time to come in and provide the inputs to the paper as well. Yeah, so maybe Leela, would you have any closing comments before we wrap it up?
Yeah, so I just wanted to have a call for all the volunteers for our future work. So we'll be similarly extending this work, and for this year we might consider 1 or 2 more topics. Especially, I think now there's a lot of interest from the community or members to know more about cybersecurity, which is a major component when you deploy any digital transformation journey or smart water journey. Then the other topic is Gen AI, which is also very contemporary and a lot of applications being generated in the market. So I would request members to actively participate in this and contribute so that our ecosystem gets benefited and this helps our industry to move forward to the digital age. Thank you.
All right, over to you, Gayatri.
Thank you, Arun, Leela, and I just echo what you both said in terms of thanking all the volunteers and the leaders for this wonderful white paper. I will be submitting this link of this white paper to all the participants again today. And just as a conclusion, we have our next SWAN APAC webinar on the 17th of September. Now, this is more on the digital transformation journey for our New Zealand market as well as the AU market. So that's actually facilitated by Eric, and the speakers would be Martin Watson and David Moore. So yeah, stay tuned and do register for this webinar. And also our next SWAN 15th annual conference, that's going to be in Europe, in Berlin, in May 2025. We'll be setting the comms out tomorrow for the same. Thank you all. Thank you. I'll end this call. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.